call it.
What up, it's your brother Khalif. You're now tuned in to Crossing the Lines Talkback Radio with your host, Brother Franklin, bringing you exclusive topics on issues that affect the black community. So tune in every Sunday at 6 p.m. sharp, airing on 93.5 FM and Facebook Live, BDLB Square. Peace. This episode is brought to you by Frostbite Energy Drink. Feel the chill that powers your passion.
How you doing?
Hey, Brother Essence.
Hey, Dr. Kim.
I'm fine. How are you all?
You're up.
Oh. Peace to the elders, the ancestral giants. Peace to the kings, queens, and royal families across the globe. Peace to you, brothers and sisters. You're now tuned into Crossing the Line Talkback Radio on Oak 93.5, where truth meets conversation and we dive deep into the issues and topics as well as solutions that affect black communities. I'm grateful to be back this week with you. I'm your host once again, Essence Divine, joining me and co-hosting a brother who brings both vision and clarity to our discussions. Founder and director of KCSSU, none other than my dear friend, the honorable brother, Asa Amen.
Anakasa, a BB for Hodier, African liberation, black liberation, African power, black power, for every black man, woman, and child on the planet. We are the original people. I am the original man. I am a son of Africa. Peace to the listening audience.
And today we're honored to be joined by a brilliant and deeply insightful sister whose work I've had the privilege of witnessing firsthand, Dr. Kim Muktarian. Good evening, Dr. Kim. For those who may not be familiar with your work, could you share a brief introduction about the background of what you do?
Absolutely. Thank you all for having me, Brother Essence and Brother Asar. It is a pleasure and an honor to talk to the audience and the listening audience regarding the topic of today's discussion. I am Dr. Kimberly Muktarian, and I'm a proud resident here in Raleigh, North Carolina. I'm an educator, an instructor, social justice advocate, and I mean business when it comes to liberating my people. And that means the African American, but all the way throughout this globe. We call this the global diaspora.
Yes. And today, the topic today is the youth is our future, the proper raising and education of our children. I want to start with a little, I pledge of allegiance. I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And this was said loud and in unison when I was in school way back when. And I was just wondering if your thoughts on this in schools, and what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I believe that I don't take my history from the soil of America. So I have no allegiance to a particular place or a piece of land, especially when it's stolen land. So I pledge no allegiance to any man or anything for that matter, especially one that took 400 years and deprived and broke down the family network, stole languages, identities, and success. So no, I would not encourage any person, even not their own, because that means that even if they pledged allegiance, that means they're also an accessory to the crime before and after the fact. So, if you really mean business about when you say you're a religious institution or you're founded on religion, no religion would let you pledge to anything that was corrupt.
Right. You got any thoughts on that, brother?
I thought that everything basically is right on point. I think when we look at, the Pledge of Allegiance and we see the liberty and justice for all, we know just based off of, the government admitting to institutional and systemic racism that this isn't true. So, I agree with everything Dr. Kim said, and I think that, basically like you had stated that this is really important discussion, for us to open our eyes and really look as far as, what they're indoctrinating us in from the time we enter the school system.
All right. And mentioning of systemic and institutional racism, and those being offspring of the Constitution and the so-called founding fathers of the nation, is it fair to our children that they have to face harsh realities of this country that contradict the Pledge of Allegiance?
Well, absolutely. I think it is a constant violation of human rights and mental health when you are asking our children to absorb the constant mental abuse that comes along with a constitution that we were not even deemed human in. We were not even recognized as people. So at the time this was written, this so-called Constitution, and even after the fact, after the Civil War and emancipation, we had, presidents who said that there could never be a time that they would even honor anything that a black person said or did. These are reality fact checks, and this is not just about the Constitution. It is what the principle of what this country was based upon. So today you still have presidents and CEOs of all kinds of, parts of this country who just don't recognize our skin as that of being valuable unless they say it's valuable.
Mm-hmm. Nice. So, speaking of that Constitution, and systematic and institutional racism, it's like the pipeline for the prison. What is the school to prison pipeline? So the 13th Amendment kind of promotes slaveocracy, and it matter of fact, let me state the 13th Amendment for those who might not know. At least a couple sections of it. Section 1 says neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as a punishment for a crime whereof the party shall have been convicted, shall exist within the United States or any place subject to their jurisdiction. And Section 2 states, Congress shall have power to enforce this article by appropriate legislation. So I want to state that because I want to get to this question, that the 13th Amendment guarantees that this is still a slaveocracy nation. What do you think can be done to get a new constitution, and how can you start the process by doing away with the 13th Amendment?
Well, let me say that, oftentimes I think we're addressing this organization or organism as a country. A country has a duty to protect its citizens. If all are created equal, and if all are protected under the 14th Amendment, then we wouldn't even need to talk about things such as DEI because we would all be included. Why are we talking about DEI if every citizen is included? Furthermore, no one enslaves his own citizens. Before the 13th Amendment or after the 13th Amendment, you cannot enslave your own citizens, which means this is not a country. This is a corporation. And a corporation has CEOs, and if you owe them a debt, then they come after you for that debt to be paid. That is a form of enslavement.
Okay. Yeah, and mentioning the DEI, could you kind of give a brief or kind of explain what the DEI is?
So according to what this so-called institutionalized colonial pad, another one of the imperial colonial pads here in what they call North America, DEI is diversity, equity, and inclusion. Well, my question is, who are we being included with? And if we are not included, who is it that we're looking for to be a part of? Mm-hmm. Are we not already engrafted into the Constitution according to our birthright?
It says for all.
Absolutely. So then we have to ask ourselves, what is the basis and foundation of America? And it is white males. that is who they are making reference to when they talk about inclusion, because everything else is an identity. Female, black, any other, the LGBTQ, anything else, disabled, all of those things, all of those are other identities separate and apart from what they call the original citizen of America. And the American, if you look at the face of America, it is their forefathers. It is the rich white elite male. And that's where slavery came from, because at some point even white women couldn't vote, even white women couldn't own slaves. So when you start talking about the definition, who are we fighting?
The white males.
The white man, the white males. And till this day, 400 years later, they're still having to make sure we know that you have to be included with us to become, quote unquote, a citizen, treated equal to who?
So, you also mentioned something about a corporation, the United States being a corporation.
Yes.
I kind of personally like just a small elaboration on that, because if it's a corporation, that means some business type or whatever. So, what is the commodities?
Right. It's a business commodity, and your stakeholders are who they have placed the tax on the backs of. So really, we're not citizens, we're stakeholders in a corporation in hopes to get benefits from that corporation, whether we invest in Social Security, our own Social Security, whether we invest in our own in any kind of IRAs or retirement fund. These are benefits that we expect to get back. But if you go into other countries or other nations, Libya, they felt the need to cover their people regardless. Why? Because it's a nation that takes care of its people first.
Educational for me every time I'm out here with y'all.
And brother, before we move on, can I add on to that 13th Amendment?
Yes, please.
Yes, because I think it's important for us to understand, what you read and how basically it's saying that, slavery still exists if you're convicted of a crime. And I think that it's a direct correlation, like you said, the school to prison pipeline. And as Dr. Kim had, talked about as far as the mental health industry and what they're doing. And I think that, we need to take a look at the fact that once they label our children, that these are the ones that they're going to target for the school to prison pipeline. And once you get to prison, you are actually indeed a slave. And that's why, we got to get rid of this 13th Amendment and slaveocracy, because we got to chip away and do away with the Constitution, because it was never designed, for us. And when we send our children into that hostile environment that practices institutional and systemic racism, who are they to label our children? And once they label them, it's all downhill from there. And I want to make this quick point right now that my Jagna Baba Akmos, my mentor, he sent me some information today about a bill that was passed in Illinois, signed by the governor. And that bill is that the healthcare industry, mental health, that they can assess children from the 3rd grade to the 12th grade. And what this does is gives them faster access to labeling our children and building more prisons and incarcerating our children. So that's a model that they're starting in Illinois. And so we have to be on the lookout for that in legislation so that we can put protection on our children when it comes to, the way that they're targeting them for imprisonment and slavery.
Absolutely. So, Brother Asar, powerful when you talk about the breakdown or the tactics. And I think it goes back to our discussion about when America goes to war on its own quote-unquote citizens. That is not a nation. So if you look at, when we talk about systematic breakdown, well, no, it's not systematic. It is war. It is war. Yeah. Now, system sounds more savvier because it makes you think that they're working on fixing the system. No, you will never call it war because you're too busy calling it a system. So you're not looking for your own nation to attack you. You're too busy thinking, we're in the process of repairing. No, we're not. It's never going to be repaired because it functions off of attack. So if you look at the prison, school to prison pipeline, long before they get to the school, they start at the home and the foundation first, which is the original protection. So you can't, by the time I get into your institution, you've already hit me where it counts most. Structure, order, responsibility, and accountability is at the home.
Yes.
And if you already attack our females with having no males or using their body to be loved and to receive attention, or a baby to trap, or now it's a trap house and everything is centered around trap and trapment, then of course by the time you send your baby off to the institution, all they can do is stick a label and say, we can't help. We have to medicate and we're going to push him through because we could care less if they receive any education or not. It's the same way in the prison. You can go to prison and not spend one day educating yourself because we don't care at this point. We used to use you as a body only. Now we don't need your body. We have another labor pool. And so we can just pass your children along through school, not make them accountable for anything, receive federal funding under Title I, which is double the amount of money just to assist the child. But really what you did is you robbed them from the beginning. Why? Because you injected warfare on your own quote-unquote citizens, and never once, and I've been a teacher for many years doing students with IEPs and 504s with BIP plans, and never once have they interjected the need for male constructivity. Where is the father? I've done every meeting with a mom or with a grandparent.
Yes.
Why? Because they are teaching us that it is okay. Mind you, they're teaching our women that you can, and then they promote it in our rap music. So now they use the music as a weaponization to rehearse the lie. Right. So now we hear INDEPENDENT. Do you know what that means? You got your own place. You don't need no man. You don't need nothing. Because we're going to provide it. We're going to provide you with the food stamps, Medicaid. All you need is your body. You put your body up. Birth the babies that he don't even want.
Yeah.
And then send them to our institution and make them close off and hope they make it through. Yeah, so this is our real education. And until we adopt a conscious mind, we're going to continue to see this pattern of civil war.
If I may, brother, I think, because you're right. Because one thing in the title of this, broadcast is the proper raising and education of the children.
Yes.
I think it's so important for us to understand what proper education is. Mm-hmm. Like one of the things that we teach at KCSSU, and it's a African proverb, and that is the knowledge of self is the basis of all true knowledge, right? And that's one thing that I think that, that's why, I feel like the primary education has got to come from us. Right, as far as knowing who we are as a people and our responsibility to one another, the values and ethics that we teach,
That's right.
Like controlling your thoughts, controlling your actions, having a purpose, right, learning to work together and learning, the value of unity as a people. Now, a lot of the things that are taught in the public school system is, things that are needed, literacy, math, social studies, but the history isn't taught in is, correct form. And I think the proper education for our children is to have the knowledge of self, know who we are, and our responsibility to one another, to family, to community, to humanity. And then that right there will let us know that everything we learn is for us to build ourselves up as a community.
I agree with that. Yes. Knowledge of self is the foundation of all knowledge. And we were speaking about, a little bit of the amendment and the bill. I wanted to ask Dr. Kim, a question about the Senate bill that just passed. But I'll come back to that because she mentioned something. She was talking about war, the way that a war that's going on inside that household or just in society altogether. So I want, like, African American children are targeted by the school system and labeled with having behavior issues, learning disabilities, ADHD, etc. They are placed on psychotropic drugs that lead to drug addiction and mental health issues. The healthcare system, insurance companies, the war it's a real war. It goes on. So how can we as African American protect our children from the medical, mental health, and pharmaceutical predators?
Well, I really believe in, I love the standard that KCSSU holds when we start talking about reconditioning our mind, dismantling the lie. And one of the things we have to teach our children, first of all, is to turn off the noise around them so that you can put in what they actually need to survive this world. I think all too often we have allowed the government in America, because we have so much consumerism, to basically raise our children. If it's not television, it's always someone else's opinion except the truth that we should be teaching.
That's right.
And that's the first thing, is that we have to arrest everything that does not support our children being strong and adamant and moving forward. And when we talk about education, we have to remember that numbers never change. The numbers that are here in America are going to be the same mathematics that's going to be in China. It's how we use, how we look at numbers. Numbers don't change. They don't lie. You can manipulate numbers, but at the end, they don't lie.
Right.
Science. If you dig gold up over here and you dig gold in Japan, you're probably going to get the same formulas.
Mm-hmm.
It's on the element chart. You can't really manipulate it.
Right.
History, though, can oppress a man or free a man.
Right.
And if we are not teaching our own children, and not only teaching our children, that's a offense, but our defense has to be openly rebuking the lies of the history that is already here. If we don't, because that's warfare. If you put something in that's contamination or toxic, we have a duty as the elders in the community to protect our children by not only saying we're going to teach you the right way, but we're going to dismantle the wrong, and we're going to punish those who lie to you in open spaces. And I think September the 29th, 2024, Chavis Park, KCSSU, held a platform that allowed us to talk directly to the children about who Sir Walter Raleigh was.
Okay.
It is when we educate our children both right and wrong so that they can not only learn, but they learn how to shut off the lies. Because how long does it take for us as a people, once they've told us something wrong, to gurgitate it up or unroot it? It stays planted for years, for centuries. We believe certain things forever. Our ancestors would be dead and gone by the time we recognize this was never true.
Right.
So we have to be on guard. We have to be, and I say, educated, not indoctrinated.
Yeah.
And that is what these systems do. They indoctrinate. They don't educate. Because math speaks for itself. Science speaks for itself. The rest is manipulated.
The rest is, and history, you said history could be manipulated. This brings me back all the way around to that Senate bill.
Okay.
Yes. I think Senate Bill 227. And I'm reading this from off, I Googled it. Senate Bill 227 in the 119th Congress, 2025-2026. It's to protect Equality and Civics Education Act of 2025, the Peace Act of 2025. This bill aims to prevent the use of federal funding for the American History and Civics Education Program to support curricular teaching or counseling that promotes divisive concepts. Specifically, it prohibits funding for concepts like race stereotyping or scapegoating, as outlined in the process ruled by the Department of Education. And then you have, I think, on top of that, the Senate bill was 558, if I'm not mistaken, and that's the same almost, but it's for higher education. I'm checking what my
Who do you mind if I ask who
558.
who sponsored the bill?
Not sure.
Okay.
But let me see if I can find it, or you already have that answer.
No,
Okay.
I do not. I can only imagine.
And what I'm getting to is can you share your knowledge on the bills if you had any or whatever, and I'm gonna see if I can find out who sponsored these bills.
Well, I mean, when you talk about today's education or the intent of American education, I think you all have already expounded quite well on the intent. What is the intent of the American history when they put it on when they serve it to the American people, quote unquote? It tells you what the outcomes are, what will happen when this type of education goes out into the society as a whole. Will our people be better or will they be worse? And that's the only two questions that we have. Mm-hmm. What do we look like after this type of education, quote unquote, goes out into the sphere? And I can tell you that most of what has been written today is definitely going to continue to paralyze our communities.
Mm.
Yes, I think that that bill is very harmful because when they talk about curriculums that are divisive, I think that the whole curriculum that they have set up is to give us an inferiority complex. So that hurts us. It hurts our children, and it hurts us deeply. And that's why like I had stated earlier, what we do at KCSSU to educate our children, we need to have more of that because it's our responsibility to make sure they get the proper education. We know that when it's dealing with history, that they want to always try to justify their wrongs and atrocities, and what they see it coming on strong as far as we getting in tune with true history, how impactful the damages have been that they have done to us as a people, not only here in the United States but globally, right? So I think that they kind of fear that once we really start to wake up, because that's the one thing that they don't want more than anything is for black people to unite, for black men to unite, for black men to be strong. Because remember, it was the white man who set everything up, and their biggest fear is the black man. So they do everything in their power to paralyze our minds, like Dr. Kim said, or incarcerate. Some kind of way to cut off, our will to unite and do the things necessary for our people. But history is so important because, and that's why, the 1619 project which was talked about a lot, it didn't start where it needed to start. It needed to start thousands of years before 1619, so we can know who we are as a people and all the great things that we were able to accomplish through building civilizations and being able to sustain and maintain civilizations for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. And that's important to understand when we understand that this country is only about 500 and something years old, right? Sure. So I think that once we and they don't want us to really know our history. That's why they give us so many negative images of Africa and things of that nature. But I think when we present the truth and we teach our children the truth, because it's always better to teach the truth than a lie. So when they put these bills in place, it's only because what they're trying to do is cover up the lie.
Mm-hmm. All right. And about the sponsors, if I looked it up correctly, it's numerous of them, but I'll read the three primaries. Senator Philip Berger,
Phil Berger.
okay, a Republican, and
He used to be the here in the state house.
and Michael Lee, Senator Michael Lee, another Republican.
Right. So now he's moved on. Berger is left the state and went to Capitol Hill, and so that means he wants to expand on a larger platform.
Right.
His hate.
Oh, wow.
Right. Yeah.
So yes, and actually had confronted him before. So
Okay. And the last primary was Brad Overcash. No insight on Brad, but yeah, those the three primaries, but it was numerous sponsors, and speaking of and in history, they teach our children about the first 13 colonies of the United States, but they don't teach what colonizing or colonization is. What are your thoughts on that? And is it important for us to educate our children about these facts?
Well, colonization, and let me say this, let me correct myself. Phil Berger is still the member of the Senate. I'm looking at his partner. I'm looking at his partner who moved on, and his name slips me. But Phil Berger is still here. And if I'm not mistaken, Phil Berger has a son who is he sits on the high courts of the state of North Carolina. And he, too, have a role in suppressing how the general public is handled. You know, these huge cases that come before him, that we would have to go not just for individuals, but for the system itself. So you have the father in legislation and you have the son in the judiciary. So,
2 out of 3 branches.
it's two out of 3 branches. So they are raising their children to dominate in certain areas. So I'll pass the ball to you and you block it from on that side. And I'll block it from this side. Where our children are struggling to stay out of prison because their dad is in prison. So we're passing on the hereditary banner of don't go to jail.
Right.
And they are in the seat to hold. So, you know,
push who the ones in jail that they want to
absolutely
create the law.
Right. So now we have generational wealth and a form of education that continues to oppress and suppress. And I think you asked a question about
Colonization.
Well,
Teaching it in school, you was just talking about it, if you know it, believe it or not. So,
and to me, colonization is a form of warfare
mm-hmm.
because when you go into another person's habitation and you already have a thought, you didn't come there on vacation. You did not plan to leave. Your ticket did not say round trip. Your ticket says, I'm coming to take over your land. And whatever we have to do to get that done. Now, either you can work with us or work without us, but we're here to take it on. Mm-hmm. That's a form of warfare. And if we switch some of these words out and called it that, we may get a different response. The reason why we don't wake up to the trueness of what colonization is because they named it a very nice name.
Right.
Gentrification.
Yeah.
We just moved you along out of your... So they found these nice little Asians and, you know, nation. No. You stole, you robbed, you killed, you murdered. You sold children down the river. Even when you start talking about our beloved Donald Trump, who they're trying to debate whether or not he had engagement with children. Of course you had engagement with children. You took children from Africa. You bred, as soon as they could have children, you start breeding these babies. So this is very well known. And the more money and more power you have, the more you didn't have to have a conscience. You didn't get on a secret plane. You didn't put a bag over your head. Lynchings. They stood there without a bag over their heads. They took a selfie. Please. You know,
They sold tickets to it.
they sold tickets and you all sent out flyers.
Mm-hmm.
Why are we acting like they have a morale? What are you looking for? Is this just a new? It must be a witch hunt for you because we understand who you are. Did you not know who you are? Donald is you. And yes, that means we have to talk about this culture. This is not colonization. This is a sick culture that goes wherever they want to, pillaging, stealing, raping, and taking. I don't know how did you get all these nice words to fit the actions that you do. Yes, sir, brother. Sorry.
Yes. I think this kind of takes me back to the first question about the Pledge of Allegiance, and the Pledge of Allegiance was put together in 1892 by Francis Bellamy, right? And it was to celebrate and honor Christopher Columbus, who 400 years prior to that had so-called discovered America. So it's a direct correlation when we're talking about the Pledge of Allegiance and everything you just said, as far as the robbing, the stealing, the pillaging, the murder, the colonization, and yet the Pledge of Allegiance wants us to pledge to something with such a terrible background historically, right? And they have our children basically saying it, every morning. I remember saying it even when I was in Head Start. Right. The Pledge of Allegiance and things of that nature. And, we think that we're pledging to something good because it sounds so honorable. But then as we get older, we learn the history. We see where it's not honorable whatsoever. And that's why it's so important for us to educate the children early as far as the challenges that we have so that, as, our generations continue in the future, that we're able to have true liberation and independence on a global basis.
And see, that in itself is fortifying our children. We have to teach them to resist early. Right. Revolution shouldn't come when they're 20 and 30 years. Right. We should be teaching our children how to resist on day one and have their back to resist. Right. The problem is we want them to go and resist, but they have no support or no backing. So look at the black teachers. They know it's wrong. When the black teacher is standing there with you reciting it, knowing that the Constitution and everything that's being taught is anti-black. Yes. But that's the power of indoctrination. And along with indoctrination is not just the thumbnail of you must believe what I believe. It's also attached with it the commodity of your livelihood. It says that if you don't, I can cut your check. If you don't, I can cut your benefits. Look at what's happening now. Everything, every threat that Mr. Trump has made to every one of these institutions, Yale, Columbia, all of these major universities, if you do not sign the DEI document, we will cut your funding by billions. So now, basically, we're using the leverage of finances to actually control you. Whether you believe in what we say or not, this is not what you believe. Your livelihood is on the line.
Sounds like war.
Sounds like war.
They wage war and we don't know it. Right. As a whole, I'm referring to. So
then, what are our children graduating into? We usually send them to graduate from something, but what are we graduating them into? The same system?
Right.
And I think this system, basically, what they want to kind of condition us to be is compliant, right? Compliant to being discriminated against, and try to sweep it up under the rug like it doesn't exist, and then we're going to blame the victim. We're going to blame the single mothers, basically, which a lot of times in our communities, our women are single by design, because of the public housing and not allowing a man. Well, we're the only group of people that are punished for having a strong family foundation.
That's right.
And that's our true spiritual foundation. The man, woman, and child, the family structure, the father, the mother, and a child. And I think
right.
that once you destroy that, you kind of, in a sense, put the household, behind the eight ball, because, you're missing a major contributor to the development of our children.
Right.
And that's having a strong father figure in the house,
That's
a
true.
strong man to protect, guide, and provide, for the family. So when we look at a system that basically has intentionally disrupted our communities, we know that they do not have the best interests of our children at heart. And so we have to be the ones who put the protection on our children and educate them properly with the right knowledge, because, they're trying to counter everything we do, with the bills and things that they pass on what's able to be taught in school on the primary level, secondary, and then on the higher level when you get to talk about colleges and universities. So it's important for us to wake up and understand the war that not is only being waged on us now, but has been waged on us for thousands of years, ever since the Europeans
Yes.
started invading Africa.
So this designed for the separation in the household, in the black families and all. Do we not see the design, or are we ignoring the the plot?
Well, I think it's a survival of the fittest. And instead of people taking their righteous stance or righteous place, they go for the falsehoods,
Okay.
because the falsehoods pay off. I mean, come on. Rappers, they would rather live a lie. They'd rather get $1 million to keep lying on the microphone, but it killed thousands of your constituents. It's dumbing down your constituents with what they're hearing. And I'll go back to what Brother Asar said. Just a combination of the two. Last year, Brother Asar, I'm going to tell you a story a little bit, but he attended an event, community with the cop, or coffee with cops, and in the midst of the conversation, a white officer of high ranking said that, and you can always correct me, Brother Asar, that black women don't know who their children's fathers are.
That's what he said.
Okay. I'm trying to be as politically or correct as I can be. However, who was standing there and heard those same horrible lies and statement was our very own, our chief of police today, a black male. Did not correct, did not challenge. And even when Brother Asar took him on task to say, hey, we need to talk about that comment, he never got back to Brother Asar, which means somebody gave this white male the false narrative, and not only gave it to him, but allowed him to feel comfortable enough to even say it in front of other blacks, not get checked, and nobody reprimand. So look at how indoctrinated, and for that alone, now the same person who was there is now chief of police, who we would have thought would have been our protection, is not our protection. So now we're going to have to, that is why we have to pay close attention as to what we are teaching the children. These are not your protectors. They protect an institution. And then we have to define what that institution is.
Yes, that coffee with a car, that was in response to a sister that had a bookstore that had been threatened.
Yes.
Right? And so she had to move. So we was there, and basically, it was the commander, the downtown commander, a white man, and he said that, the children down there that are homeless, they don't know who their father is. And when he said that right there, it struck me, because now you're disrespecting our black queens. You can't sit here and say that they don't know, who their fathers are.
That's
so
right.
that let me know the mindset of the police department, right? So they targeting these children because they feel like they don't have no structure, no guidance, and nobody to really care about them and love them. So basically, what I did was, I put together a letter and sent it to the police chief at the time, which was Chief Stella Patterson, a sister. And, she never got back with me. And then I sent it to, who's the police chief now, Rico Boyce. who I think he was the deputy chief at the time, and he said we would have a meeting, but then something came up and we never had the meeting. But one thing about it is I still got the letter, and I think it's important that we document things like that, right? Because we can always bring it back and talk about it, because that's a serious discussion. If you got the police department, the police force looking at our children in a negative way, is no type of way they're going to put protection on them. They're going to look at them as suspects instead of citizens. And I think that all of us deserve to be looked at as citizens.
Absolutely. And humans, equal, they say equal protection under the law. So when you look at me, you have to look at me as equal to you. You can't profile me, because you should be looking at me as your equal.
Yes.
I don't think it's designed that way for them, for them to think.
It sounds good, huh?
Yeah, they the biggest compliance. The police department, military, that's their
gang members.
That's their gang members, right?
The boys in blue.
So just talking about how we got to educate our children properly and inform them with the right type of information and knowledge. I want to ask you a question about these abbreviations: IEP, the Individualized Education Program, the BIP, Behavior Intervention Plan, and then it's a 504 plan. Can you explain those to us?
Sure. So the IEP is the Individualized Education Plan, and that is what our school systems come up with to structure a response to educational boundaries or challenges for children. So they take an assessment of that child. They look at see, are they learning? Where are the impediments? Is there anything psychological blocking? Is there anything attention deficits? All of those things they take a look at to see where that child is failing. Do they need more time to take a test? Do they need to go have more tutoring? What does that child need individually to stay afloat or survive in the school system? And that plan actually goes all the way up to when they're in college, so they can take their IEP from kindergarten all the way to college. Very powerful. Title I funds, federal funding actually supports children with IEPs. It's almost like its own quote-unquote disability.
Okay.
And so they send extra funding to schools. You can have a school so full of children with so much breakdown until they label the entire school Title I.
Right. So basically, Title I is supposed to benefit the child.
Yes.
But really, it's a way for the system to funnel more money to the school, also the insurance companies, the therapists, the psychiatrists, the psychologists, and the pharmaceutical company. I think that it's like you say, when you talk about a war, it's a war on our minds more than anything, which is one of the first things basically that the imperialists, the colonizers want to do, and that is to damage the mind and the spirit, right?
Sure.
And that's why I think it's so important for us to understand, like, what you're talking about, the Title I schools and these IEPs where they receive more money, which basically a lot of times they put African American educators to do the dirty work.
Yes.
And label our children.
Yes.
I just think that, that's something that I wanted to point out, that it's not a noble thing that they're doing, like they're trying to help our children, because they haven't been successful in even really educating their children.
No.
So we can't expect them to give our children the proper education, right? So I think that that's important, to understand, for the parents and all of us in general, that it's a warful one on us, and it's an attack on our minds and our spirits.
Let me say this too, Brother Asar. What we also see is that they oftentimes use these labels and the teachers that go with them as management tools. Right. This is how you manage the black children, medications, separation, alienation. These types of structures or tactics are never used on your Indian population in Mooresville or Cary. Why? Because ours is substituted with these things. So they send funds to quote unquote address something that they already put in place.
They created.
They create it. So now they're going to fund it instead of repairing it. And that is why the word reparations is such a dangerous word, because it says you can no longer patch us up with medication or patch us up with these labels. Take the labels off and repair. And repair means someone would have to take responsibility for damages. And America is not ready to use that language. That's why when we say reparations, people get a little for like, how much is it? How much is it going to cost? Am I going to be the person in charge? You know, like, are you going to pass that bill on to me? Well, it's so funny that you're scared of it that way, but you'll spend millions of dollars giving our children pharmaceuticals to quote unquote numb us, but not repair us. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I wanna add in on that because for one, for them to even try and want to control our minds is basically their goal and objective.
Yes,
is to have power and control over us, and that's why what we teach our children from an African-centered orientation, the knowledge of self, is so important. Because what the knowledge of self does is help us, deal with the trauma and correct ourselves in our minds. And, we constantly go over with our children the first principle: control your thoughts.
Come on.
We're not trying to control our children's thoughts. We're trying to let them control their own thoughts with the right thoughts.
Yes.
Right? And the tools that we use is our teachers of Maya: truth, justice, and righteousness as a foundation. So when we can control our thoughts and we can understand what's truth, we can understand right from wrong. We can understand that we have to, practice not having any resentment, when certain things happen to us, because it'll burn us up, how we have to be able to move forward. So what we're doing is empowering our children to develop a strong mind, a strong consciousness, because consciousness is power, right? So anytime we have a false consciousness and not knowing who we are, that's why the knowledge of self is the basis of all true knowledge, because now we have a consciousness that displays and exhibits power within our mind. And once we're able to control our mind, we can control our destiny. And that's so important. But anytime we let, the people come in and commit war on us by attacking our children's mind, we can't play along with that. We have to stand up and we have to fight and we have to push back on that. And every time we do, they come with these bills so that they can continue to miseducate us and miseducate our children, and even miseducate the ones of us who are supposed to have educated and being educated properly, but yet they play the game as, a pharmaceutical company, the healthcare system, as if something is wrong with our children when we have a whole system here that admits to racism.
Brother, sorry, let me just, I got to piggyback off of what you said. What is even dangerous is when they train us, to absorb their consciousness and say this is the only way you can survive. So what tends to happen is everything has to look like Big Daddy in order to survive in this world. So even if you're HBCU and you appear like you want to keep some of your identity, you may kick and stomp and do the shimmy and do all the, accolades of your divine nine. But when you leave, you have to comply. You leave the black experience and you go into these institutions where you have to adopt what Big Daddy. It was nice while it lasted. But when I went to Wake Tech and took criminal justice, my criminal justice book was the same criminal justice book as St. Aug. It wasn't no different. So we're all adhering to the standard of white male supremacy.
All right.
And that is what happens when you look out there on the professional platform. We're teaching our children how to conform in order to survive.
That's deep down. Now,
Conform to injustice.
Conform to if they pay you enough, it can help you numb the lie. See, they know what it is, but if I pay you enough, if I give you a promotion, if you ignore it for just a little while, then perhaps I can pay you enough to turn a blind eye. And so when Chief Rico Boyce, who was formerly the deputy, when I remind him that you do know that the highest numbers of murders were right here in Southeast Raleigh on Rock Quarry Road and Raleigh Boulevard, and you're a black man, what do you have to say about that? Because he's only following the script.
right. Most of the time. But this IEP, individualized education program, so and I'm just trying to get a clarification because I did hear what y'all said, but it's not like genuinely, you don't think anything is genuine about it at all, like, because sometimes individual for instance, I might learn a little better with pictures, and you might learn better from audio. You don't think individualized learning could be substantial?
Well, I think it's more of a patch-up job to try to catch what already was. What I like to do is compare our population to others. And let's look at who's excelling. Do they need individualized education plans? Or have they been taught every form of learning there is so that when they go into the classroom, they're prepared?
Right.
Do you have to pull them out and single them out to teach them a separate way or give them more time to some of our children are so illiterate, and so you have to read the book to them during the EOGs. So they can't take the test without you verbally reading to them because EOGs are timed.
Right. So.
And so nobody's at home giving them a time structure. Okay, time to turn off the game. How long is the game at home going on? Till they fall asleep. Nobody is there. So we're having, these things are just like we see the compiled interest of gentrification taking our houses up to $1 million in our community. We're seeing the same effect, but in the negative. So whatever you see going high there, we see a lower standard going in our communities.
Right.
The number don't stop. The number affects us and how we interact in this society. Nobody's paying attention to our numbers.
Okay. So the program is not used for trying to train or uplift.
Well, it's never addressing the root cause.
It's never addressing the root cause, right?
And they would, that's why I said they would prefer, Brother Asar, to throw thousands of dollars, give us as much medication as we can take before they say we have wronged this population. The reason why they are acting this way or so far behind is because we systematically dismantled them.
Oh.
And I think that was a good question by you as far as the IEP. Is there anything genuine about it? You know, a lot of times they like to try to make it seem like they're being beneficent towards us, right? But they know it's going to be more harm than good done. And they also know that they're going to benefit and profit off it, and at the same time, profit further down the line through the school to prison pipeline, you know, which basically what happens to a lot of our young brothers, unfortunately, and I'm going to be honest with you, really, that's what made me, when I was incarcerated in federal prison, put KCSSU together when I saw all the young brothers keep coming in. You know, 18, 19, early 20s with 30 and 40 years and stuff. And I was like, wow, you know, we got to really do something to stop this negative phenomenon that's taking place. And once I really started studying, I started understanding, you know, the traps, you know, that are set for us. You know, and one of the traps is to give us an inferiority complex and blame ourselves and blame each other and not value black life. As if we have, you know, children, babies, and even adults to sacrifice. You know, we don't have, you know, not one child that we should sacrifice on this planet. Not one black child, not one African child, right? A lot of times we look the other way when certain things happen because we feel like it's not happening to us individually or our family. But anytime they attack any black child or any black person, it's attack on us as a race, as a people.
Let me say this. Brother Asar said something profound. You used the word benevolent.
Right. Both, you can use both of them. Beneficent, benevolent. Right, both of them.
It is a form of charity. And everyone knows that charity never gives you the justice. See, every year, the city of Raleigh, the county, who are two of your culprits of invoking slavery, they would rather give you book bags, turkeys,
Right.
have you standing in the line wrapped around the corner as if you're in Russia getting rations so that they can feel good about themselves. But they would never tell that population, we actually owe you. So you stay at home and click on what you want because there's an account set up for you because we owe you. You go and pick out what you need for school. See, it makes them feel glorious when we stand in these long lines and give our children hot dogs and subject us to being needy. That's not what kings and queens look like. See, Brother Asar is teaching us, know yourself, know your worth, know who you are, while they're teaching you how to live subpar.
Right.
And because it's the county, people forget. County, what county? Wake County is named after Margaret Wake. Margaret Wake was a slave owner. Her husband was Governor Tryon from Tryon Road. All of them were slave owners. So when we go in their lines, we're just keeping their legacy. Just change the dress to a slave outfit and let them give you some rations from their poach. See, we got to... But when they bring K97.5, the Negroes with the music and the jumping basket, you can jump all day, pass out, take a hot dog with you in a raggedy bag, and go in there and live and go to school and don't learn nothing about yourself.
Me and Brother Saul was speaking earlier about how they use entertainment for part of their keep us control, keep us.
Dorothea Dix is a prime example.
You talking about the Dream Fest when
Dreamville? They made $145 million off of us for 5 years, and never once told the people slave graves is right there.
Right.
Never educated our people. And they invite us every year because we make them the most money because we are the entertainment central of the world. We bring entertainment with us.
I think, what you just talking about, Margaret Wake and Tryon, and even basically, when you were giving us the knowledge of, I think it was Berger and his son or somebody in that son. I think it's important, for us to realize that North Carolina was one of the original 13 colonies.
Come on.
In this country.
You better teach
So when we understand the racism, and everybody, I ain't going to say everybody, but I know a lot of people are familiar with Jesse Helms, who basically was a political figure in North Carolina, for quite a while. So the mindset and the philosophy and the psychology is already set in this state,
Yes.
right, and in this country, right. And I think that it has to really be challenged, right, so that we don't suffer because we're suffering too much up under the hands of white supremacy.
It's true.
Global Eurasian imperialism, and it has to stop,
Got
right?
to.
Because we are the ones who lose our children, we lose our young men, our young women, and even the older brothers and sisters. And I think that we have to bring awareness as far as the importance and value of our unity as a people, and not being fearful to address these serious issues that affect our children, families, and communities. And as I stated a couple of weeks ago, for the brothers, we have got to be African warriors. We have got to be black warriors, because as Dr. Kim pointed out, there is a war being waged against us. And we can't duck our heads and go hide and not put protection on our women and children.
Absolutely.
Because our women and children need us as black men to stand up and be warriors.
Come on. Yes. Let me ask you all this. Are we teaching, because based off of what we've seen, when you talk about the father and the son, who one is a political engine and the other is a judicial engine,
Right.
are they going to school because they just want a career? Or are they going to school to be weaponized in their... Come on, because...
That's a nice question,
That's
right?
a great question.
Yeah.
Are they taking on these summons to become equipped so that they can better fight the fight? See, when you create the crack war and then you come back and make the laws that protect you, banishing people for life,
Right.
or how many prisons, and then the federal prisons that were built as a result of the crack war, they have to be signed off by 2 senators in your state as who are signing off on all of these prisons. So are we look at how they get into these public spheres in order to weaponize themselves to make decisions. And are we training our children as such?
What?
Go ahead on. You answer.
Well, because she made a valuable point there, and it went through me. I'm thinking like, so we sit in the same classroom, the curriculum is the same. So, are we wired different? So like it indoctrinates our children, but their children are used. What's the word used? To be weaponized.
Weaponized, yes.
Weaponized. So like basically saying they're a weapon to help keep our children oppressed or pushed back.
So are we more in survival or on defense, and they seem to be more on offense?
Most of the time.
Right. So when we go to school, we're in survival mode. We're just trying to get by. You look at our children, that tells you why the alternative schools are so popular in our communities, because they can barely get through regular school. They just want to get out. They're not even thinking education is supposed to empower and weaponize me. They're just thinking, Miss Kim, can I pass the class? Can you tell me what I can do just to get by? And then there's a rap song that said, just to get by, just to get by. And then they tell you, I get high just to get by. So look at us. We can't even properly go to war because we high all day. Then they'll never legalize our drug because they need us to be high. They need all the males to be incompliant, high, and barely functioning.
I think that we really have some really great revolutionists, from our community, on the continent of Africa and in the diaspora and even in the United States. We have, scholars like my Jegna, Dr. Elijah Mickle, Baba Atmos. We got Dr. Sheik Anti-Dio, and we got Dr. Ben Buchanan. We got Dr. John Henry Clark, who I think is a very important historian and figure, and he basically, he had a quote talking about, the purpose of education, and it's one purpose, and the main purpose is to learn how to manage power, right? So we have to understand that we have to educate ourselves
Come on.
so that we can be empowered to do for self, right? And that education starts with the knowledge of self, building the mind up, understanding how we have to put protection on our minds first and foremost. Because when we can protect our mind, we can protect our spirit. Because if you break a child's mind or adult's mind, you break their spirit. One quote, basically, that I really, really, think highly of from Frederick Douglass was that it is easier to build strong children than to repair broken men. That's a powerful statement. A powerful quote. Because, see, a child is fresh and ready to learn. And I see that with our children. They got bright eyes and everything. And unfortunately, what the school system does is they knock that out of our children. They knock that light out of our children's eyes, the spark of life, and their curiosity, wanting to be creative by trying to make us feel as if we are inferior. But what the knowledge of self does when we teach on our culture, our history, and our glorious past, not only, on the continent, but also out here in the diaspora. Because we've had some serious warriors stand up for us, and we're still standing up.
Right.
And that's why it's so important to start, with the children while they're young, so that they'll grow up to be strong. Just like when we ask the children, what's the strongest part of a tree? They say the root. And that's why we go to our roots and understand our origin and understand the power that we have.
Yeah. Speaking of that John Henry Clark quote, which was right on time, what can we do as adults to ensure that we educate our children properly so that we can develop, maintain our use of power?
I'm so sorry, Brother Essence. Could you just repeat that part again?
Yes. What can we do as adults to ensure that we educate our children properly so that we can develop, maintain, and use power?
I think what we can do is tell the truth.
Maya.
One of the largest commodities that humanity can live by, not survive by, but live by. And I often, as I used to teach in the classroom, I would tell the students, especially in those incarcerated, I would say, they'll never kill Lil Wayne. Because Lil Wayne don't tell the truth.
Okay.
He speaks gibberish. He rhymes. He speaks to you in the kindergarten language, which is, and then he never says his name. See, real men say their name. They don't hide behind characters. So after Donald Trump finishes, he's going to want his name plastered everywhere. He wants his name remembered, not Donald Trump, Elmer Fudd. Our men are so diminished till they call themselves another man's name, Al Capone or Noriega, or they taking on somebody else's identity.
Yeah.
But you got a gun in your hand, so you're still scared because you have to hide behind somebody else who look tough. Again, and they're never going to go after the clowns. They're going to always go after those who tell the truth. Malcolm, Martin, Mega. Those are who you're going to see hang from trees. The other brothers are going to live a very long time because they're not talking about truth. And until we shame these kinds, me and Brother Asar about 2 years ago stood at the federal building to talk about Snoop Dogg and Wiz Khalifa coming to our the Altel or the Coastal Federal Unit. When he comes, he's going to bring marijuana, I'm sure. But the state of North Carolina is not legal. So Snoop is living two different lives, where RPD ushers him into the stadium because it's owned by Raleigh, the city of Raleigh. It's protected by the city of Raleigh and RPD, but he'll never get arrested. Two different messages. So the government really pays these actors, bad actors, talented, great survivalists, but it'll never make a dent in their system because they're used to continue to riff-raff. Now, I can tell you if the music that was made killed half and incarcerated half of their people, you know how fast the FCC would interject and say, excuse me, you can't say that anymore. Yeah, right. See, we don't have no standard because we still saying, look how talented he is. And if NAACP will give him an award on the NAACP awards, Glorilla, Sexy Red, what are we teaching? We're talking about teaching our children. We're really teaching our children how to survive in America.
And, you know, I think that that's a really good point because, you know, when we look at hip-hop and we look at, you know, what happened with rap, right, it was on a positive trajectory.
Yes.
You know, when you talk about Public Enemy and KRS-One.
Yes.
Brand Nubian, X-Clan.
Yeah. Very positive. And I think, you know, when they saw that coming on, you know, because I remember Fight the Power and Public Enemy. I mean, that really got us hyped because, you know, it started opening up our eyes, you know, and to what happened, you know, with Malcolm X and Dr. Martin Luther King and, you know, the march that they had, I think it was 1963. I think that, you know, when they came with NWA, and I saw a little documentary on that the other day, that NWA thought that they were really being revolutionists, right? But really they was being manipulated and controlled to push out such negativity, you know, like F the police, you know, and, you know, when you're young and you're impressionable, when that came out, I was young.
Right.
Right. And I was doing things basically, you know, to survive that are against the law. But when you would hear their song and they would plant that seed, you looked at them as your enemy, right? And so that took on a whole nother consciousness within our community. 100 miles and running, right? Because we used to what? Running from the police.
That's true.
Running from the law. So these type of things right here really was a major push for them to start understanding the connection between art or so-called art, negative hip-hop in our community and the influence that it will have on us.
Yes, absolutely.
Right? But that's when we don't have the knowledge of self. When we have the knowledge of self, we understand values and everything. What you just talked about as far as Glorilla, Sexy Red, and things like that, just disrespecting our young sisters. I'm not going to blame the sisters.
Right.
They're using the sisters as a tool.
Exactly.
And they manipulate them and exploit them with money, you know, in a certain type of lifestyle, the same way that they do, you know, our athletes. But yet, when anytime that is something that's going to be positive for our community, they're not going to support that. So they push the positive music out, and they brought in the negative. They brought in the gangster rap, and then they brought in the inclusion of, you know, drugs, all kinds of drugs, and now they're even promoting, you know, the homosexuality, especially amongst, you know, our brothers, because they want our brothers to be weak and they want to effeminize, you know, our young men. I think that that's dangerous. I think that, you know, as a people, we have to really stand up and understand the teachings of our ancestors, how basically, you know, like when we were talking about science is based off of nature.
That's right.
Right? So once we understand science and we understand nature, we understand how we are supposed to conduct ourselves as men and how the sisters are supposed to conduct themselves as women, and how we are basically two pieces to the whole puzzle. And when we come together, that's when we're truly united. But if they can keep the black man and the black woman separated, that's our whole foundation for spirituality and for success as a people.
Well, and you said correct when you talk about don't blame the sisters, because I'm also looking for, so where's our community protection?
Right.
Where is our black males? Well, you've hyped him up so much that having 14 children by 14 different women, because that's what Donald Trump released. He released NBA Youngboy, who has, I don't know how many children, but I guess him and Nick Cannon
in a race
together. And so the competition is high, but the morale is so low. until, in order for a black female in many ways to be seen in today's culture, she almost have to be exposed. She has to have no protection, no class, absolutely just, there's nothing left for the imagination. It's really bad. So now our children can't focus on education.
And I would like to make this comment, right, since we own this about music, because I think it's important. And that is that our children are being miseducated
Yes.
through the lyrics
Yes.
and through the music. But that's our responsibility to get with our young brothers and sisters who want to take that path and try to, encourage them that we have to do better. Right, we have to put something in place where we're not influenced by money and manipulated by money and just thinking about ourselves, but we're thinking about the impact that it's having on the whole.
Yes.
I know some of these, rappers have tried to turn it around and do better, but the damage is done. It's so much damage that has been done that we can't cry over spilled milk. But what we have to do is make sure that our culture and our arts are things that's going to enhance, our children, our people, and our community. Positivity, right? And that's one of the things I always, speak on the children with, and Brother Essence as well speak to the children about is let's have positive things come out of our mouths when we're speaking to each other. And when we teach on, our culture, one of the first things we teach is language, right? And that is, what we say to each other, communication. We have to communicate ourselves to each other with respect, honor, and love, and not put one another down. Another thing about our culture that we teach is customs and courtesies. We have to be courteous to one another. Our thoughts have got to be pure. We have to purify our thoughts, our minds, so that basically, and one of the things in the oldest book in the world, the book of Ptah-hotep, and the first lesson was good speech, what we say.
Yes.
And I see that as an issue with our children. And that's why, we always go over control your thoughts, control your actions. Because the heart and the mind control all members of the body, even the tongue. So what's in our heart and what's in our mind is going to come out. Right? Yeah. That's why it's so important, not only that we educate our children, but what we educate our children on. Right. And that is the value system that our ancestors had put in place for us so that we can treat each other with the dignity, respect, honor, and love that we deserve as a people.
Yeah, now, brother, go ahead.
Well, I want to make a couple statements about the little music session. Then I got a couple more questions about the education system I want to get back to. But I'm a big fan of hip hop. I want to say that first, but I'm not a fan of the trajectory that it's taking. But what I really want to get to is I grew up in the hip hop I came to was them 90s hip hop. So during that time it was war on the young men. They was bringing out acts like I hate to call names because it might make it sound bad, but they was bringing out acts like you said NWA, but Mobb Deep, which is one of my favorite groups. But they're bringing out acts like Mobb Deep or Smith and Wesson, and at that time they was starting then to start the criminal type of talk in the lyrics. So the trajectory that it take, I don't like. And now they're using the sisters that y'all was just naming to target our black women now. So what they already done disassembled the men with the hip hop world, but now they working on the sisters. So I just want to say that.
And I want to add this as a last point to that about hip hop. Right, we got the school to prison pipeline, and I heard this the other day. The music, the prison pipeline.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Well, but let me say this. Music is a form of school because it's teaching you through lyrics.
Right. Yeah.
It's teaching you through, we're lyrical people. And I think that's the part that we have dismantled ourselves from the accountability because music is a style of teaching. We sung songs on how to get to freedom.
That's a beautiful art form. It's a beautiful art form.
You could go to colleges and take up music as a learned curricula. Mm-hmm. So what we did, the problem is we started using music for survival.
Yes.
And we lost the art form that comes with the responsibility and the accountability. See, if they were looking at music as a form of remedy, health remedy, come on, they use music and have no lyrics.
Right.
And they play it in the hospitals. They play it. So they play music in the grocery stores to tempt you on what to buy.
Yeah, different frequencies they use in this.
Right.
Music.
So if we went back to learning music as an art and the responsibility, then we would be in tuned to the education that comes forth out of the music that we deliver.
But
the problem is they got us using it as a survival technique.
Now, and I definitely want to. It's an idea for a show later on. We can get on this music thing and really dive into it. But yeah, you make some valuable points because they do, and it's a lot of artists out there still to this day that gives you great lyrics in their music, but it don't get a lot of airplay, a lot of radio play.
Absolutely.
And so, but I want to ask this because it's well documented that African American students have a higher rate of in-school suspensions and expulsions. What do you feel the Department of Education can do to make things equitable in the classroom for African American children? And what can we do to ensure that our children receive the proper education?
Well, I'll just go back to some hardcore facts. Last year in Wake County alone, the first month of school, we had 1,700 incidents of suspensions. Out of that 1,700 incidents, 1,300 of them were African American. Now, let's use the word incidents. Incidents doesn't mean how many people were involved, because you can have one incident involving
one person or 10 people.
Or 10.
Right.
So the numbers, even though we account for maybe 14% of the population of Wake County, we account for almost 80% of your suspensions. And this is under the watch of a black superintendent, a black chief of staff, a black DEI personnel person, a black county manager, a black chief of police, a black city county manager. You have some of the most top paid employees are black, and they have not yelled crisis yet. This is a crisis. When you're suspending our children at this amount of rate, there is something going on internally with our children that they are either ignoring or just banishing away. You can't imprison away what you've done, because that's what suspension is. That's what alternative schooling is. It is their way of putting us away. And if you cannot pay the fees that are associated with some of the fines or the offenses, such as if you have an e-vape, and you sell the e-vape in school, which is a huge issue, you would have to take the ACE-2 program. The ACE-1 program is for those who maybe just possess and maybe have a little addiction problem. It's free. But if they find that you sold the e-vape, you have to pay $400 to take a class. Now, you ask me what single black mother can afford a $400 class at the drop of a dime. If you cannot pay, you are usually banned. I call you bonded over, because that's what they do in the prison system, is they bond you over to the alternative school in the same way they bond you over into the bail system. And if you cannot pay, you cannot stay in regular population. How do I know that? Because I challenge suspensions. And when parents cannot pay for their children to go to these classes, they are automatically removed from the traditional education setting, and they're placed at an alternative location where there is little to no resources. So they're training our children now how to accept penal institutions.
Right.
And in 27610, which is Southeast Raleigh, the poorest district of Raleigh, We have 5 alternative schools right in one zip code. Even though we have over 20 zip codes in our city, 27610 has Longview, Affinity, Central Wake, Connection, and River Oaks. So you have 5 alternative programs, basically funneling our children from the school to prison pipeline. They're already conditioning our children. But if you go to North Raleigh, you don't have that. What you have is preparatory schools. Preparatory schools are prepping you not for prison,
Right.
but to the pharmaceutical industry.
Right.
Come on. RTP, the road to Research Triangle Park. Morrisville and Cary. All of their students, their children, those Indian children, those affluent white children are going straight over to UNC, straight over to Duke University, and they're taking a part of all of the RTP, over 300 pharmaceutical companies, while our children are dying off fentanyl. They're making fentanyl.
Yeah.
One is making and one is taking.
Right. Deep there. You want to add on to that?
No.
Like, okay. So how important is it for African American children to receive cultural knowledge that will give them self-knowledge and awareness?
How important? Well, it's the key to education. And they anything else makes them go through the motions. And that is a disservice if we do not educate them first on who they are. And everything else that we build is a lie, because what they'll end up doing is we'll be preparing them to be counterfeits, just like they're enslavers.
So the parents in the house, to educate their children on who they are, first of all, they got to know who they are, right? So
Absolutely.
if they never received this knowledge, or they have no idea, how can we find, or how can they find this somewhere, or is there anything going on? You know, for the parents and for the children, the next generation, to learn about themselves or who they are.
Well, I think that's what Raleigh Lock 9 is about. Brother Asar already has KCSSU. Save Our Sons, we would go into the prisons and teach our people, because remember, out of sight, out of mind, and when no one sees you, they don't believe that you should be educated. So we have to take these programs and this education and package it and give it to our people outside of these institutions. We can't wait for these institutions to be a conduit for truth. They're not. We have to be that. We have to be that life source and that life supply to get it to our parents. They need conditioning. They need encouragement. They need, strengthening. So, and we may have to incentivize it, because they've been so long living in despair or without having a need to know. Like you said, how important is it for them to know? Very important, because now you're transitioning or transferring that mental knowledge over to your children.
Right.
Can I add on to that?
Yes, please.
Yes, I think that the cultural knowledge is the key to everything. The knowledge itself is the basis of all true knowledge, and I think to really encourage and inspire the parents is very, very important. So we have to really organize around getting the right type of knowledge and information out to the parents as well as the children. Because one of the quotes that I like from Steve Biko, right? A South African revolutionist, right? The most potent weapon in the hands of the oppressor is the mind of the oppressed. I think when we can start educating our brothers and sisters to do like Dr. Kim said, accept the truth, right? We have to really be able to accept the truth. And sometimes it hurts when we've been taught a certain way all of our life, and then we learn that we've been taught falsehood. Yes. And it is not good for us. I never forget when I read The Miseducation of the Negro by Carter G. Woodson when I was in federal prison. I was 42 years old, and I made up my mind while I was reading that book that I was going to re-educate myself. Because I said, wow, I said, they really did play a number on us, right? But I'm also glad that I had the God-given intelligence to once certain information came to me, I was able to accept it and not fight against it.
Right.
And that's what happens a lot of times. We fought against what we've been taught because we thought that it was right for so long. That's when we got to push our pride to the side and say, we have to be educated that was not only best for me and my family, but what's best for us as a community, as a global community, as African people, as black people. Right? And I think that when we learn our culture, we learn our high values, and we learn just how intelligent and how many geniuses we had, not only in Africa, but also over here in the diaspora.
Absolutely.
Like Malcolm X, Winnie Mandela in South Africa, Harriet Tubman. Do you realize how much intelligence it takes to organize freeing enslaved people? Not only does it take intelligence, but it takes courage.
Yes.
This was one of our queens who stood up. And I think it's important for the kings and the queens for us to work together and understand the responsibility that we have to teach the truth. And our 10 principles that we teach the children, the 10 virtues of a student, right? Number 4 is have faith in your teacher. That's what we teach the children, but it's a little longer than that. It's have faith in your teacher to lead you on the path of truth. And number 5 is have faith in your ability to accept the truth, right? So we have to have authentic, genuine instructors who understand our culture, understand our history, because history is very important, and not only have the intelligence, but have the will to get out here so that we can make a difference and properly educate our children, and our adults as well.
Mm-hmm.
It's so true.
And we keep talking about the history, right? How important it is. So in the school systems we have over here, and when I was coming through it for sure, the first thing that was the first place we seen African Americans was in slavery. So that type of education right there itself starts inferiority. So
That's good.
what solutions will you suggest toward improving the education system or helping the Department of Education and with improving?
Well, I believe in holding institutions accountable.
Oh, yes.
And you can't go any further than that because, all too long, African Americans or whomever we want to classify ourselves have been more complicit and hoping that we'll be treated with some type of dignity and respect. But the longer you stay away from truth, the more disrespect you receive. So we have to make it our business to make sure that the education is written correctly. What I hear both of you all say that is so profound is we talk about slavery, but really slavery was never our issue because we never created that for ourselves.
All right.
Our issue is how do you stop colonialism? How do you stop?
Okay.
So a lot of times what'll happen is they'll have us focus on you were slaves. They show all the slave pictures. You got a slave outfit on. It's just they got a whole movie on slavery, and we sort of we identify with that until we start using language that self-medicates.
Right.
That's the only reality they really want us to come to knowledge of the truth of is that you were subjected to us, which to me is even a more sociopathic. I tell people all the time, Harriet never called herself a slave. As a matter of fact, she said, I would have freed more people, but they didn't know that they were not supposed to be slaves. As a matter of fact, we know she wasn't a slave because she left and came back. Slaves don't leave and come back. And then she joined the Union as a spy, which means she was a POW. She was never a prisoner. I'm sorry, she became a soldier.
Right.
She would have took the word soldier before she became a slave.
Right.
And if they caught her, they wouldn't have caught her and called her a slave. You know what they would have labeled her? Contraband.
Oh.
It's in your history books. they would have considered her contraband. So
just to be sure, what is contraband?
it is basically like if you're found in the middle of a war, even in prison, contraband. If you go to prison and they find illegal warfare on you or any kind of, help me, Brother Kevin.
No, you right. We right there with you. Right, contraband is something that basically you're not supposed to have in your locker.
Right.
You know, it's something that they would deem to be illegal or improper, and you'll get punished, you know, for having contraband in your locker. You might have to go to the SHU, special housing unit, you know, where you become, you know, locked down.
Right, which means she put herself in a whole nother class. Right. That says if you even catch me, you better not never put that label on me.
Right.
I want to be known for being a warrior, a soldier. Classify me as contraband, not supposed to be in your war at all. We have to take off these self-affirming massa. I'm trying to work with you so you can get me. Right. I'm going to go to your school. I'm going to tap dance. I ain't going to make no fuss. And if you give me some money and a grant, and I'm going to write like you said, I'm going to say all our children is at risk. I'm going to put I'm going to put all the language and I would never call you out. See, the issue is how you make us to blame, not you to blame.
I think that, one of the things, that they teach in the universities, and I remember, I think it was one of our greats, Jawanza Kunjufu, who said that it was either him or Dr. Amos Wilson said that what they teach is a class on labeling. How to label the African American children. That we're going to label them with this or we're going to label them with that. But without really, trying to educate our children. It's as if with the inferiority complex that they give us, and they give a lot of our teachers, that we look at our own children as if they have deficiencies. When a lot of times they don't. We experienced that last week when we was at the community garden, Dr. Kim and Dr. Sauls. He was educating our children as far as prepping the land, before we start planting and everything. I mean, beautiful presentation. A couple of our students, they was right on it. They was able to repeat everything, that he was teaching them, right? And so he made a comment, him and one of the sisters out there, about how bright our children were. But a lot of these children who they were talking about are bright have already been labeled with IEP, special education and things of that nature, but they pick up gardening and farming just like that.
That's right.
Which lets us know that they don't have no learning disability because they're able to learn what we teach them. But one of the most important things are, what are we teaching the children and who are teaching them? And do we have our children's best interests at heart? So I think when we look at a system that admits to systemic and institutional racism, and that the school system is a system and an institution, that, we got to be very careful and keep our eyes open on exactly what's going on, like what's going on in Illinois, where they just passed the bill.
That's right.
Where they can start assessing our children in the 3rd grade to prepare them for the school to prison pipeline.
And if we ask for reparations, we don't have to go to none of their schools.
Indeed.
See, we can exempt ourselves altogether, but we're not fighting for our independence. We're fighting to be included. See, we're going backwards. So we're asking to be put in the fire instead of to come out of the fire. And see, that's what Dr. Martin Luther King said. At the end, he recognized all of this integration that I fought for. He said, I think I sent my people into a burning building. Anybody remember that statement?
Yes.
Right. Because he was looking like we're trying to be included with people who will dismantle us while we sit in the seat.
If I may, I think I'm glad you just said that quote by Dr. Martin Luther King, because I think that should be one of his most famous quotes.
It is to me.
Because I think that, what he saw, before he was assassinated was that, sometimes, the people who we think going to change are going to be benevolent and beneficent aren't going to be that way. They're going to always basically, try to use technology to make us think that they're trying to make things better, just like with the whole integration thing, which was nothing but to pull us closer so they could keep a closer eye on us.
That's right.
And at the same time, dismantle our own businesses and school systems and things of that nature, where we knew what we had to do as a people. But I guess we thought that once, integration came with the assimilation, that things would get better. And I think that history shows that it hasn't gotten better.
It's gotten worse.
And one thing I want to say about the Department of Education, right, and that is, this has been a conversation that's been going on for over 100 years, as far as not only the inability to properly educate, the children and the students, but the intentional miseducation.
That's right.
The intentional labeling of the children. The intentional making sure that the children don't receive what they need to grow up to be strong and be progressive, right? And when we understand, the prison industrial complex, we got to understand who make money off of that.
That's right.
A lot of the politicians, when you talk about the Food Drug Administration, a lot of the legislation, just like what they just did in Illinois, that's all dealing with economics, because now everybody's going to get paid even more than what they ever getting paid now, off of the sufferings of our children.
Absolutely. That's profound.
So what's more critical, academic education or spiritual or cultural education? And can they coexist?
Well, I believe from the beginning they always coexisted. We always had we always had morals. Today people talk about the Hippocratic Oath as if Rome or the Greeks started medicine, but no, we already had medicines, and we knew what we should and should not do to humanity to further that education along. It is over here that you start seeing people test with the syphilis, Tuskegee syphilis experiment, paperclip, Project Paperclip, where LSD is practiced on its own citizens. If you'll do that to your own, I know what you'll do to your enemy. Right. So, at the end of the day, we have to coexist with both the moral and the academic performance or the academic knowledge of how to better society. They go hand in hand, and we cannot afford to lose either or. What we have to do is take capitalism out of it, because money, the fact that you are profiting off of either exploiting the prices of medicine or keeping the people sick so that they can always need medicine. So you're not incentivizing holistic health. That's not taught. We go to school, we go to college, but holistic health, and let me say this, you can tell what people are being taught based off of what they buy or how they live. If you look at the white communities or them that gentrify, they come, the first thing they start doing is bicycle lanes, leisure, green trails, to walk through the green trails. In our communities, they're now putting up Fresenius kidney centers for failing kidneys from diabetes. On Martin Luther King Boulevard, they just put another dialysis center in the hood. So almost every dialysis center is full of black people.
Yes.
Where is the money in medicine to educate and to incentivize eating healthy? Okay. I thought we was talking about education.
No,
That's
education.
education.
That's education.
That's education.
Because guess what? Education is supposed to deliver a positive outcome.
Right.
Yeah.
Am I right?
Yes.
Once you have knowledge, then how do we get the butt-end jokes of every form of education there is? How did we end up the highest incarcerated, the highest death, the highest? Because we did not demand that they reinvest what they've taken.
Can I speak on that right quick?
Yes, please.
I think this is important, because that's a very powerful point you made. And I think one of the reasons why they're being so successful is because of the brothers and sisters who participate in the oppression of our people. Like everybody that you name that's in high positions within the county government, within the city government, they play a role
Yes.
in making sure, that the disparities in healthcare and just like, Brother Essen just pointed out, education, healthcare, criminal justice system, all of those things are basically interconnected and interdependent among one another.
Yes.
And I think that, when we really, look at the knowledge of self, the brothers and sisters who play a role in helping to oppress us, whether it's willingly or knowingly or unknowingly,
Right.
they still playing a role. And I think, a lot of that comes from, unfortunately, the HBCUs and why they were even basically, designed and put together. Now, I know it'd be some good come out, the HBCUs, but at the same time, we have to be honest about the boule and the fraternities and the sororities, and a lot of the, brothers and sisters that you name are affiliated, with fraternities and sororities. And I think once you take on the Greek philosophy in a fraternity or sorority, that's letting our oppressors, and white supremacists know that, we're not going to get in the way of y'all continued dominance. And as a matter of fact, we're going to play a role in helping y'all to maintain y'all power as long as we can get crumbs off of y'all table.
Oh boy. Oh boy. I'm not even gonna touch Brother Asar with that the whole truth of that issue. It's because here's the thing, Massa cannot survive without a house Negro.
There you go, Django Unchained.
They can't survive. They would be too scared. They would have to watch over there. So who is giving these power structures the confidence and the dominance to even continue to offer us the things or the concepts in our community? Or do we not have anybody that refute or rebut?
Right.
Or do you get paid so high that you forget what you're supposed to do when you get to the table? Eventually, we start eating the lie. We want to be at the table so bad. But see, they keep forgetting that if you're going to call on Jesus, at least he flipped over a table or two.
Right.
And, and I started listening to Marketing in America, and this little twinge that came out, you got to get to the table. And I'm thinking, but he told us to stay away, don't eat at every table. We're so busy trying to be a part and assimilate and eat all the lies or dress it up that we can't fight truth.
Right.
That's why when Martin Luther King and them birthday come around, all we can do is march and have a breakfast. Because we don't have any action plan beyond that.
Right. So,
That they're gonna give us a holiday, they're gonna give us a plaque, a street name, they're gonna put MLK everywhere, and that's nice, but it's not enough.
So the ones that of our brothers and sisters that grasp the concept of the schooling that excels at school, are they the type that becomes the, what y'all call them, the house Negro?
Quite a few of them do. I think Brother Asar called them boule.
I think it's important that we know that, the information that we receive is going to be the knowledge that we possess. So if we're being told that we're excelling, in Western philosophy throughout their school system, and we develop a Western psychology, of course they're going to go along with the system, because they're going to look at the system as they ain't going to look at the system as the problem. They're going to look at us as the problem. They're going to look at themselves as the problem. They're going to feel like, well, if I can achieve, we all can achieve. And that's where the trick comes in. Then we want to start comparing our children. Well, that one's doing well. Well, that one is complying to what they're being taught, right? But we should challenge injustice, and we should challenge falsehood, and we should challenge lies, and we should challenge the pledges of allegiance, and we should challenge, the 13th Amendment and the whole Constitution, because it never had our best interests at heart.
That's right.
And that's why it's important that, we teach our brothers and sisters, and our babies, we teach them as early as possible, but at the same time, we teach the ones where this information, hasn't been presented to them before.
So how do we protect our children from those all the negative influences, and why they still be able to navigate the world with strength and wisdom right now? Basically, I'm asking, with the miseducation, and mostly the teens, because we got a lot of teenagers out there right now that probably didn't gain any knowledge of self through their youthful years, and now they're just starting to fall through the cracks or go astray a little bit. So how do we protect them?
Personally, I think it has to be an all-out movement on teaching, the truth and what's useful and beneficial for us. And, it's going to take us as adults. I don't think we can really depend on the public figures that are in office,
Yes.
To want to teach the truth, because they're going to want to cover up the lie because they benefit from the lie. And, that's why, it's, we won't gain a lot of support from them, and I don't think we should look for a lot of support from them. I think we should look from support from brothers and sisters like us here, on this platform, who understand, the value of being black, of being African, the confidence we have, the love we have for our children. I think that's very important. And that's why I made the statement that we don't have not one child to sacrifice or one adult, because we got to love, one another unconditionally, right? So I think that just starting off with, like Dr. Kim has pointed out, truth.
Yes.
I think starting out with truth. I think when we start with the knowledge of self, that we learn to love ourselves. And if I got the knowledge of self and I love myself, I'm going to love my brother, I'm going to love my sister, I'm going to love my people. And my people going to be first. And I think that, once we adopt that type of, philosophy and psychology, and I also want to point out African psychology is based off of understanding that we are spirit.
Yes.
Right. And I think that once we understand we are spirit, we understand that we are, the direct descendants from the Creator. Right. We are the original people on this planet, and all other, nationalities, races of people come from the black woman.
Yes.
So I think when we identify with that reality, we understand why we are as spiritual as we are as a people. And I think that our spiritual consciousness, and remember I had stated earlier, consciousness is power. So when we have the consciousness of understanding that we are spirit and we are connected, we're not talking about the individual bar, which is the spirit, or the individual car. We're talking about the universal bar and the universal car, how we're all connected spiritually because we all have the same origin as the original people on the planet.
Absolutely. And, let me say this with you, Brother Asar, is that education cannot be institutionalized.
Ooh, that's right.
Legislation, you cannot legislate hate away. You can't pass a bill to stop someone from hating. And so you can't even own a slave. You can't own humans. I don't care what document you put it on.
Right.
That's the mind of a sociopath, a person of bitter fear and resentment. And they've professionalized or institutionalized that fear. They put a value on that fear through capitalism, and they've penalized through institutions of slavery. So what we have to do is bring the fight outdoors.
Right.
We have to teach from the cosmos. We got to get away from there. We have to be able to teach our children that school does not begin at 8 o'clock when the bell rings.
That's right.
Nor does it have an allegiance to some petty flag that, when there are millions of when your bloodline as the original man can be found almost in every human across this globe,
Right.
because you are the original people. So you don't have a local body to even account to. You are accountable to the human race.
Right.
And so once we start teaching our children that, and that's why I have no problem as an educator dismantling their terms and definitions. My definition for DEI is duress, enforced indoctrination.
Ooh, go get them, Dr.
Yeah.
Kim. Go get them.
Yes.
Yep.
And so that is our kickoff, is to dismantle those who are under duress because of enforced indoctrination.
Right. Yes.
Nice. She answered the last question that I did want to ask her.
Oh.
Nah, it was right on time because I was gonna ask how what could we do to raise some strong and wise youth, in our communities, our schools, and so forth and so on. So wonderfully answered,
Thank you
Dr.
so much.
Kim.
God bless you.
I guess this pretty much wrap up. I wanna as we wrap up today, powerful conversation on the youth.
Yes.
The proper raising and education of our children was the topic today. Let us remember this. We are not just raising children, we are cultivating nations. Every lesson, every word of guidance, every ounce of love and discipline we pour into our youth is an investment in our collective survival and liberation. It's on us, parents, educators, leaders, and elders, to create environments where our children can thrive mentally, spiritually, and culturally. Because when we educate them properly, we raise them with purpose and guide them through truth. They don't just survive, they lead. Special thanks to our powerful guest, Dr. Kim, Muktarian, and my brother in the struggle and in spirit, the Honorable Brother Asar. And much love and respect to you. Until next time, walk in the truth, speak with purpose, and keep crossing the line.
Whew. Yes.
Community Radio, WRLYLP, Raleigh.